latest movie from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This movie follows the events of the previous movie, Ant-Man, and also some other movies within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Before I talk about this movie specifically, I do want to make note of the success that Marvel has had at the box office. This is currently the 20th movie in a row that Marvel has reached the #1 spot at the box office, which is actually incredible considering how nervous everyone was about this movie following Infinity Wars. And I will say, I think the success that Marvel has found the most is putting so much effort into developing these kind of B-list superheroes. You think of Marvel superheroes. 10 years ago, you would have never thought of Ant-Man or the Guardians of the Galaxies or some of these other characters that we love today. But Marvel has developed these movies in such a way that we care about them, and people are still going to show up to the theater to watch Ant-Man and the Wasp, whereas 10 years ago, maybe they wouldn't have. So before I go specifically into spoilers, I do just want to let you know my opinions of the movie in case you haven't seen it yet. This movie was a lot of fun. I think Marvel does a great job in developing these smaller characters and making us care about them. The stakes for this movie work. Following Infinity Wars, it's really hard to top because you have this kind of end-of-the-world type drama going on. And you wonder, what kind of situation is Ant-Man and the Wasp going to follow that we can actually care about? The thing Marvel does so well is it takes these stakes for these characters and make them important to us. And the stakes of the movie made sense. I think the best example of this is coming from Spider-Man Homecoming. Following Captain America Civil War, you kind of wondered, are we really going to care about some high school drama superhero? But it was still a great movie. The stakes worked for that character, and it wasn't life or death situation necessarily. But they developed a villain that made sense for that specific branch of this Marvel universe. And Ant-Man and the Wasp does the same thing. The stakes aren't necessarily life and death, end of the world, but to these specific characters, the stakes are high, and it makes us invested in this film. I think it's really fun that Marvel is able to take these kind of lower superheroes and just have fun with them. Infinity War was such a heavy movie, and as much as I love it, there are things about this movie that are just kind of fun to watch. Seeing a giant ant or salt shaker or Pez dispenser in the middle of the road is really enjoyable, and those are some things that we wouldn't be able to see in other superhero movies that Ant-Man can bring us. Going into this movie, I would suggest watching Ant-Man in case you haven't seen it. I actually only saw that movie once, which I kind of regret going into the sequel, because there are just a lot of things that they set up in that first movie that they kind of call back in this one, and it would help just to have it fresh in your mind. So before I get into spoilers, I just want to give you a couple reasons why you should see this movie. I believe Marvel has once again developed a great villain, and one that is very fun to watch on screen. The action scenes in this movie are also incredible. I think that these choreographed fights are something that could only be done with characters like Ant-Man and the Wasp. As much as I love Iron Man and Captain America and other Marvel heroes, we've seen them battle so much, it's kind of refreshing to see these fight scenes be done in a new way. With the ability of Ant-Man and Wasp to shrink, to grow big, and to fly around, it makes these fight scenes really enjoyable to watch. Just in general, it's a fun movie. It'll make you laugh, and the acting is actually really incredible itself. So, this is your last chance. If you have not seen this movie, turn it off now. Alright, so here's the thing with these stakes for Ant-Man and the Wasp. For the most part, they made sense. They were awesome. I got it. The one thing I did not enjoy about this movie is this supposed crime lord, or whatever he is. I'm not even sure. And the fact that he was just chasing around the entire movie. Honestly, I could have done without him. He really did not offer anything to this script or to the specific characters. Every time he entered screen, he would kind of have a brief, little stare down with them. They'd acknowledge, oh no, this guy's back, and then they would just forget him. They didn't even bother fighting him, really. They didn't even bother doing anything. It's because he wasn't a threat. He was just kind of running around, and I don't even know why he was there. There are really only 2 scenes where he even contributes anything to the script or the characters. First one is the scene where Hope is buying this part from him, and all of a sudden he discovers who she really is. To me, the only purpose of that scene was so that Ghost could steal this part and introduce herself as a villain. The next part is where he shows up with his henchmen and uses the truth serum to find out where Ant-Man and the Wasp are really hiding. Because of that scene, Ghost once again is there, and she also discovers where they are. But besides that, he has no purpose. It's as if the only point of him being in this movie is so that Ghost can eventually show up. And I just think there are other ways around it. Ghost could have figured out where they were outside of him giving truth serum to someone. Sure, it gave a couple extra car chases, but besides that, he really did not do anything for me in this movie. The other specific scene I just cringe about thinking is when we figure out that Laurence Fishburne's character is evil. Now, I'm all about a great plot twist, but I just don't know if that was the right moment for it. We didn't even get to understand his character. He was in the movie for about 5 minutes and all of a sudden turned evil. So to us, there's no emotional connection to him And that plot twist just didn't work because of it. That, and then it just jumped to the stereotypical, I'm the villain, so let me tell you my whole plan while you're tied up. It just didn't fit for me. I think if they would have held off on him revealing himself, maybe just for even another 20 minutes, give him one more scene as the good guy, and then have it turn on us, that would have been way more effective. Also, just figure out a better way to explain the villain's plan other than the villain just walking us through it. Outside of those scenes, I thought this movie worked. What I love that Marvel is doing is giving us villains that we can relate to. I think we've seen this for a couple movies now, where I find myself watching the movie and I almost sympathize with this villain. It makes sense why she's upset with these characters. Thing is, when it comes to this drama that Hank Pym had with all these people, the only evidence that we have that he is really a good guy is just his word. She's kind of talking how he screwed her father up, and all he has to say is, oh no, she's lying. He was really a bad guy. And that's it. There are moments in this movie where I'm like, I think I'm on her side. I think I want her to do this. Because realistically, she wasn't all that bad of a villain. The only thing she was trying to do is save herself. She wasn't out to kill half the population of the earth. She wasn't there to slaughter anyone. The only person she was going to possibly harm was Michelle Pfeiffer's character, who, can I just say, did a fantastic job. The reunion with her, Hope, and Hank was just beautiful. She really sold it for me, and I will without a doubt say that she was my favorite actress in this movie. But besides her possibly dying, Ghost really isn't all that bad of a villain. And so it kind of makes you relate to them, and you don't want to hate them, but you still do because they're fighting against your hero and trying to stop them. And I think that's cool. We even saw that to an extent with Thanos. And you start to relate to them and see where they're coming from. I think Marvel has really stepped it up with its villains, turning them into actual characters and not just evil figures that our heroes can hate. The last thing about this movie I want to talk about is that end credits scene, which was so cool. This might have been my favorite end credits scene in every Marvel movie. Here is my question, because everyone kind of has talked about why did a movie like this follow Avengers Infinity War? Because really, Ant-Man and the Wasp is one of the most smallest scale Marvel movies that there is. To follow the massive blockbuster that Infinity Wars was a risky move, especially since outside of this scene, the movies don't really connect at all. You have to wonder if it was strictly because of the timeline, so that they could show this scene and have us understand. But then it makes me wonder, what would have happened if they would have released this movie before Infinity War? Because honestly, that doesn't really spoil anything about Infinity War if you haven't seen it already. The camera turns, you just pretty much see this dust floating in the air, and you don't see that they are there anymore. So part of me really wants to go back to not watching Infinity War, watch this movie first, not knowing what that scene means, but then watching Infinity War, and all of a sudden the dots are connecting. I think it'd be a pretty cool experience. So here's my challenge to you. Find someone who has not seen either of these movies. Show them Ant-Man and the Wasp first, and when they start to question that last scene, show them Infinity Wars, and I would love to hear what their reaction was. So that's it, Ant-Man and the Wasp. I would definitely go see it. It is a great, solid Marvel movie. You cannot go wrong with this franchise. So let me know what you think. Did you like it? Did you not like it? What do you think about the order of release when it comes to Infinity Wars and Ant-Man and the Wasp? Comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, and shoot me a like. Why not?